Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David. I started my career in network engineering in 1999, and I learned two things in 1999 that are still true today. Building interplanetary internet is really frighteningly difficult. Getting DNS to work on Mars is hard. Now that sounds silly, right? But in 1999, the United States Department of Defense was giving millions and millions of dollars of funding to Vint Cerf, Bill Manning, some of the really smart people in our industry, and telling them, help us solve the problem of internet connectivity in outer space. Okay? Well, they were working on that in 1999, and they're still working on that in 2023. One of the other lessons I learned that's true is when you build your network, and when you run your network, it's independent. Your network, your rules. Nobody gets to tell you who to peer with. No one gets to tell you who to buy transit from. No one gets to tell you who to accept as customers, who's not to accept as customers, within reason, of course. But your network, your rules. And this was always true at layer 3, right? The thing is, as independent as our networks are, as independent as we build them, it is still an interdependent world. The choices that you make as network engineers impact everybody else in this room and their networks. They impact everybody else in the world and their networks. This end-to-end model is a mesh, and it's not just a mesh of layer 3 connections, it's a mesh of decisions. We all have to communicate and rely on each other and help each other in order for the internet to work. This has always been true. It always will be true. So when BGP was created in 1995 or so, BGP4, 1995, one of the challenges that first existed was inaccurate routing information finding its way into our routing tables. By 2014, there were multiple incorrect routes being inserted into the DFZ every single day. About 500 or so every year, incorrect routes coming in. Some of them are hijacks, yeah, sure. But most of them are misconfigurations. Because ultimately, when you're adding routes, a human has to type an IP address. A human has to put in the network map at some point. And we make mistakes. Mistaken routing configurations cause lots of problems over 25 years of internet. So in 2014, a group of network engineers got together and said, okay, we've got to find a way to solve these issues. Let's find a way to stop incorrect routing information from getting into the DFC. Let's find a way to stop routes from spoofed IP addresses, and let's find a way to, let's build a framework where we can communicate with each other, where we can really help each other solve some of these problems. And out of this thinking, and out of this discussion came manners, ISOC's mutually assured norms on routing security. Now, manners started in 2014, it's 2023. It only took 5 years for manners to reach critical mass. It was in 2019 that manners had over 600 of the world's largest ISPs, transit providers really, dropping RPKI invalids rather than sending them onwards. And that program has been so successful over the last 9 years. And it's been successful because it had very easy value proposition, right? Let's stop incorrect routing information, and let's work together to do it, and we found a way to do it easily, and that was manners. Okay, well, I work in the DNS world, okay? And we really liked that. We really liked how manners worked, how manners developed, and how successful manners been. So we totally copied it, and we created KINDNS. As important as Alex was saying, the whole thing, internet infrastructure is the whole ballgame here, right? Well, part of that internet infrastructure, of course, is the DNS. The DNS is what causes most of your problems, of course, because it's always the DNS. But seriously, DNS is where so many of the vulnerabilities are, because bad actors rely on inconsistent DNS configurations to leverage their attacks. And so many of the bad actors out there use the DNS for their attacks. So if we could remove a lot of the inconsistency in how we configure the DNS infrastructure around the world, we could actually help prevent or help make it a lot more difficult for attackers to leverage the DNS for their bad actions. So we created KINDNS. It's a terrible acronym: knowledge sharing and instantiating norms for DNS and naming security, whatever. The whole point is it's a very simple framework that all DNS operators, no matter how big or how small, can adopt, and from that we can have consistency in the DNS. Essentially what we did is we found a set of best practices for every type of DNS operator out there. Are you running an enterprise network? Well, you've got DNS on that. And for enterprise network operators, we have a small set, about 7 practices that you should adopt. And if you do that, your DNS will be more secure. If you are an ISP running your own DNS for your customers, same thing. If you are a public DNS provider, or you're running an open resolver for some reason, same thing. So these were the people we were targeting here in KINDNS. And as I said, each category has about 6 to 8 practices. There we go. The essence of KINDNS is a simple website where you can do a self-assessment, where you can go on the website without identifying yourself whatsoever, figure out what kind of DNS infrastructure you have that fits into the categories we've defined. And in about 10 minutes, you can do a self-assessment on how you adhere to the 6 to 8 best practices that we've identified for you. Once you have assessed how your DNS infrastructure is doing, if you like this, you can enroll as a participant in KINDNS and show the world that you're adhering to this and help convince others to do so. Participation, just like manners, it's voluntary. One of the things, we've been running this program since September, and one of the data points that we're finding out of KINDNS is that operators are using the self-assessment to convince management that there are some issues that we'd like some money to solve, please. One of the other things we have found is that there's a practice out there that's really important that's not very well implemented across the board, and that's queue name minimization. In a 15-second nutshell, when your device looks up www.google.com, it sends a lot of information about who you are, what the device is, what your IP address is, where you are, to lots and lots and lots of different parts of the DNS infrastructure, all the resolution architecture. Queue name minimization helps mitigate a lot of that by only sending the critical bits to each step along the way and obfuscating all the rest of it, because that's information they don't need to see. When you look up www.google.com, you send that lookup to the root servers, to the .com resolvers, and then to the google.com resolvers that get you to www.google.com. Queue name minimization simply sends the .com part of your query to the root servers and the google.com part of your query to the .com name servers. It gives you much better privacy. This is an important protocol that has essentially no practical downside whatsoever for DNS operators and for end users, and it's something we really strongly encourage everyone to adopt. As I said, we've been running this program since September, and we're learning some lessons, and we're trying to improve it. The most interesting thing I'm going to point out on there is at the bottom there about integrating into Zone Master. Zone Master is a pretty popular set of tools published by the folks at Internetstiftelsen, the folks who run .se in Sweden. Zone Master is publishing both on their website and in their Git repositories, tools that you can use to very quickly press a button and test most of your DNS infrastructure against the KINDNS norms, just using the Zone Master products. We are working on getting more people enrolled into KINDNS. Again, this is targeted at everybody who runs any type of DNS operations, ISPs, universities, community networks, enterprise, and anyone larger. So we're doing a lot of engagements. I'm here today. I live in Washington, D.C. This is my first time in Sofia, and I very much enjoyed it here and got very lucky with the weather. Thank you. We are encouraging more of the open resolvers to also join. About 20% of Bulgarian end users access DNS through public resolvers, 1.1.1.1 or 8.8.8.8 or any of these. Most of the rest of those 80% use the resolvers that are provided by you, the ISPs. So we're trying to get them involved as well. As we go through this, we're also tackling some of the more geeky DNS questions about our best practices. Does response rate limiting, is that something we ought to be including in our practices? We recognize that there are many split horizon DNS setups that we need to account for. IPv6, how important is that for reachability? Obviously it's important, but is it mission critical? Some say yes, some say no. So we're always looking for people to join our community review team. If you're a DNS geek and you're really into this, please look up at the kindness.org. There's a mailing list. Please join it and come help us evolve KINDNS. And that's the end of my slides. There's the website, www.kindness.org. Thank you so much for your time.